My name is Scott Ridout. I'm the lead pastor at Sun Valley Community Church in Gilbert, Arizona. I'm also the director of generosity for Converge Worldwide. I travel the country training churches how to create generous cultures in their congregations. And today I want to take a couple minutes and talk to you about how to create a generous culture in your church. One observation I've seen around the country is this, that most churches think short-term momentum when it comes to generosity. They think in waves of generosity. That's why they see in building campaigns what happens is they have this 1 year, 2 year, 3 year campaign, and the assumption is at the end of that campaign somehow some of that money miraculously will move over into the general fund, and yet they never see it happen. It just doesn't happen in the life of the church. Or they do a generosity series or a stewardship campaign, and for a season it seems to work. In the short term it seems to work, but in the long term there's really not much different. Things go back to the way that they used to be. That's because in most of those cases, the leadership of the church has been thinking in transaction when they should have been thinking in terms of transformation. They've been thinking in terms of behavior modification when they should have been thinking in terms of life and heart transformation. They're thinking too short term. They should be thinking long term, not in waves, but in tides. How do we raise the tide? How do we raise the culture of our church? Years ago, Andy Stanley gave a paradigm of how to create a culture in the church. I'm going to use that today to talk to you about some things that you can do in the life of your church. Well, the first piece of the puzzle is, how do I motivate my people to be a generous people? And in most cases, churches use the lowest levels of motivation to encourage their people. Here's the lowest levels. The lowest level is guilt and shame. The next level is duty and responsibility, then followed by need at a little higher level. Those are okay in the short term, but they don't work for the long term. You need to move past those levels of motivation to this thing called vision and opportunity, and even beyond that, to this thing called love and joy and privilege. Where people are so consumed with the love of God and His love for people that this generosity overflows from what they experienced from God, and it goes into the lives of the people around them in their time, their talent, their treasure, and their touch. Another thing you can do to motivate your people is this, is to weave generosity into every weekend. Weave it into every ministry. Weave it into everything that you do. Because repetition is the mother of learning. Repetition is the mother of learning. Did I mention to you that repetition is the mother of learning? We need to repeat it all over the place. So in your sermons, in your announcements, in your music, in your testimonies, in your newsletters, in your classrooms, in your small groups, try to weave generosity into every weekend and into every ministry and in every part of the church. When generosity becomes a part of the conversation of the church, it'll become a part of the practice of the church. Figure out a way to weave it in. Time, talent, treasure, and touch. The second piece of the puzzle is this, is to educate your people. A lot of churches motivate their people, but they don't educate their people. People want to be generous, but they don't know how to be generous. They're too upside down in their finances, too upside down in their time, too upside down in their lives. And what you need to do is help them, train them, equip them, educate them to get right side up in those things so they have the opportunity to give their time, their talent, their treasure, and touch. The third piece of the puzzle is to celebrate. Every church celebrates something, and what gets celebrated gets repeated. The things you talk about the most are the things that are going to get repeated. And so how are you celebrating generosity from the stage? How are you celebrating generosity in your newsletters? How are you celebrating generosity in your Twitter, in your Facebook, in your website? How are you celebrating? Whatever gets celebrated gets repeated. And in celebrating, make sure that you link generosity with life change. People need to know that what they're giving of their time, their talent, their treasure, and touch is making an impact on others. And when they do, that investment has a great return. Their ROI, the return on investment, is seen, and they'll begin to give more time, more talent, more treasure, more touch, because they can see the difference it's making, because they've linked generosity to life change. The final piece of the puzzle when it comes to generosity that we're going to talk about today is this, is to demonstrate. Demonstrate. Be a model. Let the church be a model. Let the leadership be a model for the people of your congregation. So the thing about generosity is it's contagious, but only up close and over time. If you haven't created a culture where the leadership and the church are headed in the direction of becoming generous, the people will never become generous. There are a lot of things in churches that only happen when leadership is on the journey. I've never seen an evangelistic church without an evangelistic leader. I've never seen a prayerful church without a prayerful leader. And I've never seen a generous church without generous leadership in the church. A couple things you can do. Number one, adopt generosity as one of a very few core values. Don't have 18 core values that no one remembers. Have 2 or 3 that everyone will say, this is what we do and this is how we do it. Let it be the fuel for the engine of your church. At our church, it's authenticity, community, and generosity. Second, I would say redefine maturity in your church. The fact is, most of us haven't defined maturity at all, and so the assumption is, the default is, maturity is knowledge. But maturity really is love. It's action-oriented. So here's how we say it at our church. You're never more mature than when you give and when you serve. What's done for us is we've created a plumb line now that people say, okay, I know what maturity is, and now they have something to shoot for, and they give and they serve. Motivate, educate, celebrate, demonstrate. All those things will lead to a much more generous culture in your church. For more information, you can check out www.generositysummit.com. Hope you guys have a great day.